Portico Library and Newsroom has a very rich heritage and fascinating history. The library itself turned 219 years old this year, and it was founded in 1806 by Robert Robinson and Michael Ward, and their driving interest was to keep up with the Joneses in a way, the Liverpool Athenaeum Library, that was also a subscription library, but also to carve their own niche to represent the interests and educational access that perhaps at that time was outside of the remit of a lot of men of their class, so kind of upper, middle, and aspiring potentially upper class people at that time. They started to badger their friends to put up subscription monies, and from there the library has grown and evolved significantly. As a newsroom as well, it was a source of information, newsprint. The control of the press and the taxes on published media at that time were massive. There was no free press at the time of the founding. So a lot of the sort of founding tenets of the library were about access to news and information and creating a space really where members could congregate and discuss topics of the day. It was boomtown Manchester, so to speak. It was an industrial revolution peaking at that time, where money was flowing in from textiles and cotton, and a lot of the emerging sort of magnate or merchant classes were looking to better themselves, to educate themselves and to move up in the world. So societally speaking, the Portico is very connected to the social history of Manchester and its evolution, and the rich sort of tapestry of working class as well as merchant class people who really made up the background of industrial Manchester at that time.
So with the collection that's surrounding us today, it's not just old, but it's very specific to the city of Manchester as well, because the members and the founders of this place since 1806 when it opened up, it shows how Manchester minds back then want to know about, because there were medical men, there were merchants, there were gentlemen as well, there were people who want to basically carve Manchester as the industrialized city. And the way that they want to know things kind of reflect into the collection of what they request to be brought. And one of the things that fascinate me is one of the books that's called Aristotle Masterpiece. It was published in the 1720s in that period of time. It was published long before that, but the version that we have is about this big. It's tiny, it's in an enclosed box. The leather itself is very worn. When you flip the page of the paper, you can see that it's really thin and soft. It doesn't even look like a paper anymore. It's like a very thin sheer fabric. And it shows you how many times this book has been brought out to read, because people want to know about, how do people become pregnant? It's about woman's body, the womb, the fertility, all the remedies, all the births and everything. And it was treated as a midwifery book in the 17th century, but it was popular throughout to 19th century as well. So people would read and try to see what to do if a woman become pregnant, what's happened next. The thing itself is fragile, but the content in it just shows how far we have come in the medical world as well, and how people perceive the story of woman and about the womb, because this very book was banned at a certain point in time, because of course it's chat about woman and like its body. And there's a section about that it's discussed that the union needs to be divine and holy as well. Otherwise, it could reflect to something that they don't want to see, or the baby might not be born perfect or things like that. So that was really, really shocked to see in a good way. And just seeing that we can hold in our hands how old it is and how much it reflects the science and the story behind all this in this very place was discussed, what was changed, and what was thinking about in this very room that we sat in 200 years ago. It was surprising.
We spent a lot of time thinking about our application to the Lottery Fund for Dynamic Collections. So we went back and forth talking to people of the book committee and trustees and getting advice. And in the end, we decided that what we really wanted to do was explore sections of our collection in some depth and also try and connect with some core audiences. So basically we went for East Asia, partly because we thought it was manageable. It's about 200 plus books. So we thought it was a manageable number to sort of catalogue and have a look through. And then we're next to Chinatown. In fact, we're really part of Chinatown. And then in terms of, we wanted to do something that was local to us because, our collection reflects the northwest of England. North of England, we run a writing prize for the north of England. So we wanted to do something that was kind of about the north and northwest. So we went for folklore. And partly, again, that was to appeal to a wider audience. So in one sense, one bit of the collection is global, but hyper-local in terms of audience, as in trying to, attract people from Chinatown. And the other is kind of very local in terms of collection theme, so folklore from the north, the northwest, but attracting a wider audience from really across the north of England, but particularly in Greater Manchester. And our objectives are really to really grow our understanding of the collection, to find out more about it, to find out how it's changed, what biases there are in it, and mainly to connect with audiences. And we're all very passionate about the collection that we've got, but we're none of us experts in, well, Alice is expert in being a librarian, but the rest of us kind of are experts in different areas. So it was really something that we were also trying to do to skill ourselves up, to understand more about the books that we have, and what makes them unique, what the content is, illustrations, all that kind of stuff. So we were sort of trying to skill ourselves up as well. And I think this has really helped us understand more about our collection.
I think one of the objectives of the Dynamic Collections program is, again, the relevantness and what people can actually do with the collection. Because when people come in, they might not feel that they can request to read books here, although they can. And we have researchers project as well in program that they could apply to become a researcher for free. They don't need to be academics, they just need to know if they want to know, and they could do that. And it's about easy access, because it could be really hard to find what you want from this collection, of the way it was catalogued, the way it was set up, and the way it was laid out as a collection here. So when we search things in the catalog online, if we search certain things, it might not come up because it wasn't logged into the system. All this could change for the better when Dynamic Collection is wrapped up, because then you can actually search things and become more easier to see what you can find, because we're trying to tie loose threads and expand it into a proper spider web that could make sense to people.
I was just walking by, and that was how I came across the Portico. And I thought, oh, that looks interesting doorway there, what's that? And I came up the stairs. Now, this would have been in the early 90s, and I came up the stairs to the library, and at that time, really, there was not much going on in the library at all. And so my first visit was really short, because I walked in and I was told that I could sit down, but not much else. And I just looked around at the books and I thought, well, I obviously can't touch any of these books. And I just sat down in a chair, looked around, and then I thought, okay, well, that's kind of it. And I left. So my first visit was really short. So now I'm volunteering with the Portico. Where I got to that point was I kept on coming back as a visitor over the years. And eventually, I think it's 7 years ago now, I came back to Manchester to live here. And I wanted a quiet place to write, because I am a writer. So when I got back in 2019, I started to look at the libraries. I looked at Rylands, I looked at the Central Library, and I came here. And I wanted to choose a place that would be quiet and would be a place that I could sit down and do some writing. And as soon as I walked into the reading room here, I knew that this was where I wanted to be. And so I joined as a member so I could use the reading room. And then after a while of being a member, I realized that this was all very well, coming in and sitting in the reading room and doing my own thing, but I really didn't know a great deal about the library. So I decided to volunteer. And I started out volunteering weekly on a Friday. And I'm still volunteering, although my role has changed tremendously.
I was drawn to the Portico Library because it was a space that I felt was kind of a hidden gem. There was something mysterious and unusual about the fact that it was this historic collection of books that sort of tucked away above a public house, which is still a part of the original library but had been in use as a pub since the 1920s. And like a lot of people, I accessed it from the street, and I learned that this space was a space that I could be in and feel welcome after thinking, oh, it's not for me, and then going to a free exhibition really and finding it was accessible financially for me. I could enjoy learning about the collection through the books on display in that exhibition, but also that there were events that were really outside of the remit of most libraries that I'd ever been to, that were both sort of challenging and mind expanding. And I loved the fact that the real ethos of the library was to be truly inclusive and reflective of the diverse communities of Manchester, and that the Dynamic Collections project, when I looked into applying to become the participation officer and lead on that element of Dynamic Collections and the People, Purpose and Place in Historic Books programme, the fact that the aim of the programme was really to innovate, diversify, and truly make change and empower audiences and participants of the community and critical friends to do that rather than tick boxes, and to truly decolonise the collection, to really interrogate the collection, open it up and bring the stories and the missing voices into that mix, was what made me want to be a part of this project. Another thing that attracted me to the Portico Library as a member of the staff team, that I was drawn to the fact that it was an organisation run primarily by female staff members, which was something I hadn't really encountered much before. And I really enjoyed the fact that I could be included in the team as somebody with hidden disabilities and as somebody identifying as non-binary and queer. I felt that that was a very welcoming space for someone like me, and I was able to be upfront about my own identity and feel held within that. And I think that's reflected in the way that the organisation operates as a whole, in that it's trying to create safe spaces for people to enjoy a collection that is still rooted in colonial and historic issues. But yeah, my love for an institution that is trying to almost own that, work with the challenges of that and turn it on its head and evolve it, was what really drew me in.
With how people communicate with us and the community work that ties into this collection is quite powerful. We leave a lot of narrative and autonomy for them to decide what they want to do and what they don't want to do. I think as a staff team, we are really good at listening. The fact that we are very approachable and we accept and we can change, that is one of the things that people feel like they can connect to us about, which is quite rare. I think the fact that people can talk to us and we are quite helpful with researching or requesting a book or being friendly to them is quite a core thing of how the Portico be the Portico and how we grow. I think the fact that people can reach us quite easily is great, and we can support them throughout their researching or being part of this place is something that they feel like they can belong. Our events program is great because there's a lot of topics that we talk about that could be uncomfortable or hard to deal with in this very space. But the fact that we bring it up to events, the public events, that people can come and can share their own story, some is really sensitive story during events, is a powerful one. No one can force anyone to do that. That's a natural thing that you need to start to build, and I think we have that. I think the fact that Debbie or the staff around be there to support and make the space calm, quiet and safe, people feel that and they can sense it, and they feel like this is a safe space they could share their own story. It happened many times, and we have seen tears, we have seen hugs, we have seen the support that people give each other in this space is very empathetically beautiful. And you can't force that on anyone. You can't make people feel safe. You need to make the place safe, and they will feel safe.
So one of my most special experience with the library is when I was handling one of the historic books as part of my contribution at the Echoes collection. I remember that being either the first or the second volume of the 30 Years of Governance, which is an autobiography of Governor Bowen, who governed Hong Kong for a few years. And I was actually frantically opening up the book to find the page I was reading through the last time I was reading the book. Then I smelled a pretty strong sense of remaining tobacco, which is usually quite subtle, but it was pretty strong that I managed to pick it up in just a brief moment. And it brought me into a very vivid imagination of the intended audience or the intended readers in late 19th century who were probably reading the book on a couch, smoking a pipe tobacco while digesting what Governor Bowen has written in the book. So that was a very special moment because it reminded me that dealing with any historic collections isn't just about the content. It's also about the materialism of the object, given that it's a tactile item. The materialism or the material of it is as important as the content because it says a lot about why it was produced and the intent behind the production and who were consuming it and the environment around producing this specific item. So that was a really special moment.
So I really love the story of bogarts and house elves, and the idea that we had a bogart in the library that we called Brian, who basically disrupted our Wi-Fi. And then I'd say when I was tired, I'm just going to elope with Brian. He can take me to his fairy world. So then I found these ears, and so I started wearing them around the library. And actually, people didn't really notice at first, which I don't know if that says something about me or about them. But my favourite story, probably about dynamic collections, is the opening of Weird as Folk, and we all dressed up. I take a particular pride in dressing up for events and things. And I had fairy wings, but I had to make them practical because I spent a lot of time loading the dishwasher and pouring drinks. So they're kind of like a scarf at the back that I can float around in. And I wore these ears and wore glitter as well. So I particularly enjoyed doing that. And I think the fact that everybody sort of embraced that as part of it, and there's quite a lot of people dressed up and came to the opening night, the 5th of July, and it was a really lovely day. And sort of really just embrace that kind of environment and, having a bit of fun, really. That's what I really enjoyed. That sort of really resonated with me.
So the next phase for the evolution of the Portico Library is reuniting the Portico project, which is a capital-funded project through the Heritage Lottery Fund, matched to £9 million over the next 5 years. We're already through into the first year of that programme, and that involves reimagining and reintegrating the building, reclaiming all the floors of the building, including the first floor, and making sure there's street level access to the building. So the physical accessibility issue, which is the primary barrier for a lot of audiences and visitors, will be removed, but people will be able to come in through full wheelchair access. And the building itself will be repurposed into a working library again, as it were. So there'll be the ability to circulate books. We've got a temporary loan collection at the moment, but it will be expanded greatly. There'll be a dedicated performance space, restaurant, cafe, and exhibition area. There'll be a lot more scope for even more amazing events and even more inclusive activities here, including educational workshops, which is a big part of the Portico's offering. We're also really excited to bring the learning from the Dynamic Collections programme, the People, Purpose and Place in Historic Books, into the Reuniting the Portico activities, and that's sort of organically happening already. Some of the learning from this pilot is starting to flow into the innovative programme happening with the freelance activities coordinators who are in post at the moment doing this amazing work around Reuniting the Portico. We've invited loads and loads of participation from communities and visitors as well into the design and the next phase of the building. It's going to be a living, breathing embodiment of collective decision-making and crowdsourced ideas. We are also seeking match funding as well in the process of this programme and this renovation. The library itself will become more sustainable, it will become a lot more accessible, and hopefully it will continue to evolve and integrate into the future.